Hello, loves. It's Hills from the Blue Flame Apothecary. Well, Mercury has moved into a forward direction. In just a couple of days, the messenger will meet up with Algol again for the last time of this year. It's not exactly what I've popped on today to transmit about, though. In just a couple of hours, another planet is going to station retrograde. Saturn. There's an amazing piece that came through to help us play with this energy. Before I get into that, though, I wanted to just give a little bit of information about what this Saturn retrograde is all about. Saturn has been in Aquarius since March of 2020. If you can think about the things that were going on in March of 2020. This is also when the Saturn-Uranus Square started to come a little bit into effect. It was mostly in its exactness. It was hitting its exactness all through 2021. However, because Saturn is moving retrograde now, the ringed planet is moving back to the place, slowly but surely, where Uranus is again, and they'll have their final exact meeting of this square. This is also the last time that Saturn will go retrograde in Aquarius. Next year, Saturn will move out of Aquarius and into Pisces, starting a new age. And that's starting to take us where we're going. So today, when I was feeling into this conversation, I decided to run a chart for the Saturn retrograde. It's something that I do pretty often when I'm getting ready to do an update on something. And I knew that there was something that needed to be in the chart, but I wasn't sure what it was, so I was just kind of scrolling around, picking stars here and there, like, oh, is it you? Is it you? And then finally I was like, oh, let go. You'll find it. And so I just started scrolling. And then glowing, as its name would suggest, in front of me was the infrared dragon. What an awesome name. So it was hard to find anything on this astrological phenomenon that they call the infrared dragon. It is kind of it's not part of the M17, but it's off to the side. Like, there's 3 big nebulas all kind of clumped right together, and they have this really interesting formation where the middle, it's almost like a galaxy. It's almost like the Milky Way galaxy with the galactic center. The middle is super bright and able to be seen by the naked eye, for us with a telescope, but not even a very strong one, because they could see it in the 1700s. And it's creating huge numbers of bright blue O-class stars. The nebula just off to kind of celestial east of it is in like a cooling down phase. All these stars have been made, it's gone through everything it needs to do, and it's like ready to ease back and take its retirement, maybe. And then off to celestial west of M17, there is what they're calling the infrared dragon. They're calling this a dark star nebula, which I love. I'm a Grateful Dead head, so you call something dark star, not only for that reason, but also for that reason, I'm gonna like it. So, the reason though that they call this a dark star nebula is because they didn't even realize anything was happening here. They knew something might be happening because they could see like little flashes here and there, but it wasn't until the technology increased to the point where they were able to look at it with an infrared lens that they were able to see the amount of star formation that was actually happening and the amount of color that was there. This particular nebula body sits very close in the astrological sky to Arcturus. No surprise there, right? Baby star, like young star formation, seeding down into Arcturus. Or maybe even better, Arcturus seeding up into young star formation. Stars also have souls. We'll just leave that there. So let's get into this Saturn retrograde, okay? I feel like what the infrared dragon is trying to remind us of with this Saturn retrograde for the last time in Aquarius is that it's good to look over, to go over something that you've already seen before from where you are now. You're going to be able to see things that when you originally viewed them, you didn't have the tools to understand. And each time you look at something from a different place, from a higher perspective, from a different perspective, you're able to connect to a different aspect. You know, in 10 years, we'll have a whole new technology and we'll look at the infrared dragon and we'll be like, holy fuck, look what's going on there now. You know, this is how humanity progresses. It's not always scientific though, right? It's spiritual. If you can feel into how looking at this from a spiritual perspective, from a perspective of higher mind, higher self. Now this brings Mercury in, right? Because Mercury is still dancing with Algol and still dancing with the North Node and Uranus, and they are all square Saturn, as Saturn's going retrograde. And Mercury is almost, and Algol are almost exactly square. What can we allow this messenger to bring in as we're allowing also a rewriting of stories, of false beliefs, of old beliefs that don't fit anymore? When I feel into this Mercury retrograde, Saturn retrograde, Mercury is not retrograde anymore, but we are in the shadow of it and it's a little strong. There's a song by Fish that keeps coming into my head, and I'm just gonna give you some of the words to help, because this is very what it feels like in a way. It's time for the last rewind, for a broken old man in a world unkind. Now, if you think about how Saturn has been viewed, this Lord of Time, this Lord of Karma, has been viewed for so long as negative. Saturn has carried this weight, this heaviness of, oh, you have Saturn attached to your sun. Oh, where is Saturn in your chart? Oh, like people get really heavy when they think about Saturn, and they get really upset if they find Saturn is in aspect to anything in their chart. But Saturn is a beautiful energy. And maybe one of the things that we're being asked to do is go into this last rewind, not only as we did with Mercury and Algol a couple of weeks ago, but as Mercury is about to fly on over Algol once again, maybe we're being asked to allow Saturn to show us who they really are, what it actually means to be the Lord of Time and the Lord of Karma, and how much beauty can come from enjoying and allowing the gifts of that. That brings me to another piece that was feeling really loud about this particular retrograde, this Saturn retrograde, and that's that there are, we talk a lot about the gifts hidden under the wounds, the gifts hidden behind your karma. I talked a lot about that in the last video about Aldebaran. And it feels to me that that's part of this, but it's not so much personal gifts, but that Saturn is taking this little backwards walk into Aquarius, and then we'll, towards the end of the year, start moving back forwards again. And there will be this time, I actually don't know that it's towards the end of the year, I may have that wrong, sorry. There's this opportunity because they're coming back together with Uranus again through this retrograde. Otherwise, this square would be ending. We'd be finishing it. And it's like, well, no, let's review, let's see what we can find, and that it's happening right as Mercury is doing the final dance with Algol is not lost on me. There's something really beautiful about, okay, how can we explore these dark stars, these hidden aspects of self, these once maligned aspects of being, whether it's the feminine or magic or, insert here. All of these things that were deemed no. We're deemed no. That's not right. Dark is bad. But maybe we just can't see the light inside of it. And we need better tools. And so Saturn's giving us this chance to retrace that ground. And because it's the last retrograde of Saturn in Aquarius, we're not just going back to the last Saturn retrograde. We're actually going all the way back to March 2020 when Saturn entered Aquarius. So everything that's happened in the last 2 years is on the table for review and revision where necessary, for reviewing from a higher perspective, from a different perspective. From when I say higher perspective, I mean higher mind, higher self. Where can you view this from heart and mind at the same time? there's so much opportunity. I'm going to say over the next couple of months now for this particular Saturn retrograde. It feels like one of the strongest things that we can do, though, is to just really sit with ourselves and listen. And that's always good advice. That's always good advice. But for this particular energy, like, what is it that's asking me to review to help bring through new earth, to bring through the new way? Because after this Saturn retrograde, Saturn's going to continue forward motion again in the next year, go into Pisces. We're making that shift, right? So, turn just a little bit and feel into those decisions that you made over the last couple of years, and see which ones can possibly be re-envisioned, especially if those decisions were made because you were using judgment in some way. You were casting judgment upon something. Saturn is very, very strong with regard to judgment, and this is one of the reasons that there's so much negative connotation about Saturn. But it's not necessarily that judgment is bad. It's more that the way that we have historically used judgment is bad. When you're saying, I used my best judgment, that can be a good thing. It would be better to say, I trusted my instinct, perhaps. Words are tricky. They have a lot of power. And so how we use them is really important. And the power that we give them is very important. So even a meditation on that word, judgment, what does it mean to you? Might be really beneficial, especially in these first couple of weeks as Saturn is going retrograde. Yes, reviewing your judgments. I think that's the title. Oh, my dears, so much and many loves to you all from all the dimensions.